The sound of a train whistle pierced the crisp October air as Amanda Osborne's heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. It was 1875 in Willow Creek, Wyoming territory, and the man who had promised to take her away from this dusty frontier town had just departed on the eastbound train without her. Her tears fell freely onto the wooden platform as the black smoke from the locomotive disappeared into the distance, taking with it all her dreams of a better life in Chicago. "He said he loved me," she whispered to herself, clutching a handwritten letter that now felt as empty as her future. At 22, Amanda had believed Edward's promises of marriage and prosperity. She had packed her meager belongings in a single trunk and sold nearly everything she owned to purchase her train ticket, only to find herself abandoned. The station was clearing out. The station master gave her a sympathetic glance as he prepared to close up for the afternoon. "Miss, you can't stay here all day. Next train ain't until tomorrow morning." Amanda nodded, trying to regain her composure. She reached for her trunk, but in her emotional state, she stumbled and the trunk crashed to the platform, spilling its contents across the wooden boards. This final indignity broke what remained of her composure, and fresh tears flowed down her cheeks as she fell to her knees, scrambling to collect her scattered possessions. "Let me help you with that, madam." The deep voice startled her. Amanda looked up to see a tall man kneeling beside her, already gathering her scattered clothing and personal items. His brown Stetson hat shadowed a sun-weathered face, but she could see kind blue eyes beneath the brim. His appearance was that of a working cowboy, worn denim, leather chaps, and boots with spurs that jingled softly as he moved. "I'm much obliged, but I can manage," she replied, hastily wiping her tears with her handkerchief. "No trouble at all," he said, carefully folding a blouse before handing it to her. "Name's Luke Irvine. I'd have been on that eastbound train if my horse hadn't thrown a shoe on the way into town." Amanda took the offered garment. "I'm Amanda Osborne," she said softly. I should have been on that train too." Luke paused, noticing her reddened eyes and the crumpled letter in her hand. Understanding dawned on his face. "Someone left you behind," Amanda nodded, unable to speak through the lump in her throat. "Well, Miss Osborne, it seems we both missed our train, though for very different reasons." His voice was gentle with no judgment. "Have you got somewhere to stay tonight?" The reality of her situation suddenly hit her. In her certainty that she would be leaving today, Amanda had given up her room at the boarding house. Her funds were depleted after purchasing the train ticket, which now sat useless in her reticule. I hadn't thought that far ahead," she admitted. Luke stood, offering her his hand. "My sister runs a small boarding house on the edge of town. Nothing fancy, but it's clean and safe. I'm sure she'd have a room for you." Amanda hesitated, remembering all the warnings about trusting strangers, especially in a frontier town like Willow Creek. But there was something in Luke's steady gaze that comforted her, a quiet strength and honesty that she rarely encountered. "That's very kind, Mr. Irvine, but I couldn't impose. It's no imposition. Besides, I can't in good conscience leave a lady stranded at a train station with night coming on." He closed her trunk and lifted it effortlessly. "Unless you'd prefer I find the sheriff to escort you." Amanda managed a small smile at his consideration. "No, that won't be necessary. I would be grateful for your sister's hospitality, just until I can sort things out." As they walked through town, Luke kept a respectful distance while carrying her trunk. Amanda was keenly aware of the curious glances from townspeople. A young woman walking with a cowboy would certainly start tongues wagging in a small place like Willow Creek. "May I ask what business takes you east?" she inquired, attempting conversation to distract herself from her troubles. "Cattle business. The ranch I work for is looking to improve their stock with some eastern breeds. I was sent to negotiate the purchase," he explained. "Now I'll have to wire my boss and wait for tomorrow's train." "I'm sorry to have delayed you further," Amanda said. Luke shook his head. "Don't be. Everything happens for a reason, Miss Osborne." They arrived at a modest two-story house with a neatly tended garden, a sign reading Meadowlark Boarding House hung by the gate. Before they could reach the door, it swung open and a plump woman with Luke's same blue eyes hurried out. "Luke Irvine, I thought you'd be halfway to Cheyenne by now," she exclaimed, then noticed Amanda. Her welcoming smile never faltered. "And who might this be?" "Sarah, this is Miss Amanda Osborne. She needs a place to stay tonight. Miss Osborne, my sister Sarah Winters." Sarah's keen eyes took in Amanda's tear-stained face and disheveled appearance with immediate understanding. "Of course, dear. Come in, come in. I've just made fresh coffee and there's apple pie cooling on the windowsill." Inside, the boarding house was modest but immaculate, with simple furnishings and handmade quilts adorning the backs of chairs. The aroma of home cooking filled the air, making Amanda realize she hadn't eaten since early morning. "Luke, take Miss Osborne's trunk to the blue room upstairs," Sarah directed, then gently led Amanda to a comfortable chair in the kitchen. "Now, dear, you sit right here while I fix you a plate." Before Amanda could protest, a steaming cup of coffee was placed before her, followed by a generous slice of pie. Sarah busied herself at the stove, giving Amanda a moment to collect herself. Luke returned from upstairs and accepted a cup of coffee from his sister. "I need to see about getting my message to the ranch owner. I'll be back for supper if that invitation still stands." "Don't be foolish, of course it does," Sarah replied. 6 o'clock sharp. After Luke departed, Sarah sat across from Amanda with her own cup. "Now, dear, I won't pry into your business, but if there's anything you need, you just say the word." Amanda felt tears threatening again at this unexpected kindness. "Thank you, Mrs. Winters. I don't know what I would have done if your brother hadn't come along." "Luke has always had a good heart," Sarah said with obvious pride. "Lost his wife to influenza 3 years ago, but he never let it make him bitter." Amanda's surprise must have shown on her face, for Sarah continued, "He doesn't speak of it much, threw himself into his work after that. He's foreman at the Circle T Ranch, now finest cowman in the territory, if you ask anyone." As the afternoon progressed, Amanda helped Sarah with household chores, finding comfort in the routine tasks. Sarah, sensing Amanda's need for distraction, kept up a steady stream of conversation about the town and its inhabitants. By the time supper was ready, Amanda had changed into a fresh dress and tidied her honey blonde hair. The boarding house's other residents, an elderly schoolteacher and a young clerk from the mercantile, joined them at the table. Luke arrived precisely at 6, freshly washed and wearing a clean shirt, his sandy hair still damp from a recent combing. Throughout the meal, Amanda found her gaze repeatedly drawn to Luke. There was nothing particularly remarkable about him. He wasn't handsome in the conventional way that Edward had been, yet something about his quiet dignity and the respectful way he treated everyone around him resonated with her. After the other boarders retired for the evening, Luke lingered at the table. "I've sent word to Mr. Thompson about the delay. The train leaves at 9 tomorrow morning." Amanda nodded, her heart sinking at the reminder of her own predicament. "I should be planning my next steps as well." "Do you have family you can return to?" Luke asked gently. "My parents died 2 years ago. I've been working as a seamstress since then." She twisted her napkin in her lap. "Edward, the man I was to meet in Chicago, he owns a department store. He said he could offer me a position and eventually—" "Well, it doesn't matter now." Luke's expression darkened slightly. "A man who leaves a woman waiting at a train station isn't worth your tears, Miss Osborne." "Amanda," she corrected softly. "And you're right, of course. I just feel so foolish." "We've all been fooled by someone at some point," he said. "The question is what you'll do now." Amanda straightened her shoulders. "I'll find work here again, I suppose. Start over." Luke seemed to be considering something. "The ranch where I work, Circle T, the owner's wife, has been looking for someone skilled with a needle. Their daughter's getting married in the spring, and there's talk of a proper wedding gown." Hope flickered within Amanda. "Are you offering me a position, Mr. Irvine?" "Luke," he countered with a small smile. And yes, I suppose I am, at least until you decide what you truly want. The ranch is about 10 miles from town, not too isolated, but far enough to give you some peace. Why would you do this for a stranger? She asked, genuinely puzzled. His expression turned thoughtful. Because someone once did the same for me when I needed it most. The following morning dawned clear and cool. Amanda had made her decision during the night she would accept Luke's offer and travel to the Circle T Ranch. It wasn't the future she had planned, but it was a chance to rebuild with dignity. Luke seemed pleased when she told him her decision over breakfast. I'll escort you to the ranch after I send another wire to Chicago. There are some business matters I need to conclude before I can return to my regular duties. At the telegraph office, Amanda waited outside while Luke conducted his business. When he emerged, his expression was grim. Is something wrong? She asked. The man you were meeting, Edward Blackwell. Amanda's heart skipped a beat. Yes, how did you know? I just received a reply to my inquiry. Edward Blackwell is already married, Amanda. He's done this before, promised positions and marriage to young women in small towns, only to abandon them. The revelation hit her like a physical blow. Amanda swayed slightly and Luke's hand shot out to steady her arm. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I thought you should know. Strangely, instead of fresh grief, Amanda felt a wave of anger followed by an odd sense of relief. Thank you for telling me. At least now I know I'm not the first fool he's made. Luke's grip on her arm tightened slightly. You're no fool, Amanda, just someone who chose to see the good in a man who didn't deserve it. They collected her trunk from the boarding house, said goodbye to Sarah, and set out for the Circle T Ranch in a wagon Luke had borrowed. The journey gave Amanda time to observe the Wyoming landscape, rolling prairies stretching to distant mountains, the occasional cluster of cottonwood trees marking the presence of water. It's beautiful out here, she remarked, breathing in the clean, sage-scented air. Different from town. Luke nodded. That's why I could never settle in a city. Out here a person can think clearly, see far, makes your troubles seem smaller somehow. As they traveled, Luke pointed out landmarks and shared stories of his 8 years working cattle in the territory. Amanda found herself laughing at his tales of ornery steers and cowboys' pranks, her earlier heartbreak receding with each mile. The Circle T Ranch came into view by mid-afternoon, a sprawling main house, bunkhouse, barn, and various outbuildings nestled in a valley beside a creek. Several cowboys paused in their work to wave as Luke drove the wagon into the yard. A tall, silver-haired man emerged from the barn, followed by a woman in a practical dark blue dress. Thomas and Alina Thompson, Luke explained. Good people. After introductions and a brief explanation of Amanda's circumstances, tactfully avoiding any mention of Edward, Mrs. Thompson immediately took Amanda under her wing. We've been hoping to find someone with your skills, she said warmly. Come inside and meet my daughter, Rebecca. The next few days passed in a blur as Amanda settled into life at the Circle T. She was given a comfortable room in the main house and immediately put to work helping Rebecca plan her wedding attire. The younger woman was delighted to have a trained seamstress available and quickly formed a friendship with Amanda. Luke returned to his duties as foreman, but Amanda often saw him directing the ranch hands or consulting with Mr. Thompson. Occasionally, their paths would cross at mealtimes or in the evenings when the household gathered in the main room. Each time, Amanda found herself looking forward to these brief interactions more than she cared to admit. A week after her arrival, Amanda was sitting on the front porch, sketching design ideas for Rebecca's wedding gown when Luke approached, leading his horse. I'm riding out to check the northern pasture, he said. Thought you might like to come along, get to see more of the ranch. Amanda hesitated. I've never ridden before. Luke smiled. Old Pepper here is gentle as they come. I'll keep it slow. Something about the invitation, perhaps the chance to escape the confines of the house, or maybe just the prospect of Luke's company, made Amanda set aside her sketchbook. I'd like that very much. With Luke's help, she mounted the placid mare while he swung onto his own horse, a spirited bay gelding. True to his word, he kept the pace easy, leading them along a well-worn trail that followed the creek. "How are you settling in?" he asked as they rode side by side through a meadow dotted with late wildflowers. "Everyone has been very kind," Amanda replied. "Mrs. Thompson says they'll likely need my services beyond Rebecca's wedding. They've been sending to Denver for all their clothing needs." "Sounds like you found a place for yourself." "For now," she agreed. "Though I still wonder sometimes what might have been if I'd gotten on that train." Luke was quiet for a moment. "I've found that the roads we don't take often lead to the same disappointments as the ones we do. It's the people we meet along the way that make the difference." They crested a small rise, and Luke reined in his horse. Below them stretched a vista of the entire valley, the ranch buildings tiny in the distance, and beyond them the endless Wyoming prairie. "This is my favorite spot on the whole ranch," Luke said. "Whenever things get too complicated down there, I come up here to remember what's important." Amanda understood perfectly. "It puts things in perspective." They dismounted to let the horses graze, and Luke spread his coat on a flat rock for them to sit. For a while, they simply enjoyed the view in companionable silence. "May I ask you something personal?" Amanda finally ventured. Luke nodded. "Your sister mentioned you were married once." A shadow crossed his face, but he didn't look away. "Her name was Catherine. We had 2 years together before influenza took her in '72. "I'm sorry," Amanda said softly. "So was I for a long time." His voice was even, but Amanda could hear the emotion beneath it. "I blamed God, blamed the doctor, blamed myself for not being able to save her." "What changed?" Luke considered the question. "Time, mostly, and realizing that Catherine wouldn't have wanted me to stop living just because she had to." He looked directly at Amanda then. "Loss shapes us, but it doesn't have to define us." Something in his gaze made Amanda's breath catch. She realized with sudden clarity that what she felt for Edward had never been love, it had been desperation, a desire to escape her circumstances. What was growing between her and Luke was something entirely different, a connection built on mutual respect and understanding. As autumn turned to winter, Amanda found herself increasingly integrated into life at the Circle T. She created not only Rebecca's wedding gown, but also dresses for Mrs. Thompson and clothing repairs for the ranch hands. Word of her skills spread to neighboring ranches, and soon she had more work than she could manage alone. Her friendship with Luke deepened over shared meals and conversations by the fireplace in the evenings. He never pressed her or made overt gestures, but his attentiveness and quiet support spoke volumes. Amanda discovered that beneath his reserved exterior was a man of deep feeling, intelligence, and occasional surprising humor. The first snow fell in early December, transforming the ranch into a winter wonderland. Amanda, who had grown up in town, was enchanted by the pristine beauty of the snow-covered prairie. One evening, after finishing her work, she borrowed a heavy coat from Mrs. Thompson and slipped outside to experience the stillness. She was making her way carefully across the yard when she heard the crunch of footsteps behind her. Luke approached, carrying a lantern. "Careful," he cautioned. "Ice under that snow." As if to prove his point, Amanda's foot slid at that exact moment. Luke's free arm shot out, catching her around the waist before she could fall. The sudden closeness, his arm firm around her, his face inches from hers in the lantern light, made her heart race. "Thank you," she murmured, reluctant to step away from his steadying presence. Luke didn't immediately release her. "Amanda," he began, his voice husky, "I need to tell you something." The seriousness in his tone made her nervous. "What is it?" "I've been offered a position managing a ranch near Laramie. The pay is better, and I'd have a share in the operation." Amanda felt a cold that had nothing to do with the winter night. "You're leaving?" "I haven't decided yet." His eyes searched hers in the lantern light. "There are considerations that make me hesitant to go." Hope fluttered in her chest. "What considerations?" Instead of answering directly, Luke asked, "Do you ever think about leaving the Circle T, going back east like you planned?" "No," she answered honestly. "I've found something here I never expected." "What's that?" "A home," she said simply. And she hesitated, then gathered her courage. "And someone who makes me feel valued for who I am, not what I can offer." Luke's expression softened. "Amanda, I've tried to keep my distance because I didn't want to take advantage of your situation. You came here vulnerable and it wouldn't have been right. And now?" She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Now I find myself hoping you might consider a future that includes me," he said, the words coming carefully as if he'd rehearsed them. "Not right away, I know you need time and I respect that, but someday." Joy bubbled up within her, unexpected and overwhelming. "Luke, I don't need more time. These past months have shown me what truly matters and what kind of man deserves my heart." The kiss that followed was gentle at first, then deepened with a passion that surprised them both. When they finally parted, breathless and smiling, snowflakes were drifting down around them, catching in Amanda's eyelashes and Luke's hair. "I'll turn down the Laramie offer," Luke said, his arm still around her waist. "Are you certain? It sounds like a good opportunity." "The best opportunity is right here," he replied with conviction. "Mr. Thompson has been hinting that he'd like to make me a partner eventually, with spring roundup coming and Rebecca's wedding after that." He took her hand in his. "Perhaps by summer we might have a wedding of our own to plan." Amanda's heart soared at the tentative proposal. "I think that sounds perfectly reasonable, Mr. Irvine." As they walked back toward the house, hand in hand through the gently falling snow, Amanda marveled at the turns her life had taken. 3 months ago, she had been abandoned and heartbroken at a train station. Now, she had found not just security and purpose, but a love far deeper than anything she had imagined possible. Spring arrived in a burst of green across the prairie. Rebecca's wedding was a joyous occasion, with Amanda's carefully crafted gown drawing admiration from everyone in attendance. As the celebration continued into the evening, Luke drew Amanda aside to a quiet corner of the ranch yard. "I have something for you," he said, reaching into his pocket. He withdrew a small ring with a modest pearl set among tiny diamonds. "It was my mother's. I've been carrying it since Christmas, waiting for the right moment." Amanda's eyes filled with tears as he knelt before her. "Amanda Osborne, I love you with everything I am. Will you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" "Yes," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "With all my heart, yes." They were married on a perfect June day beneath the cottonwood trees by the creek. The entire ranch turned out for the celebration, along with Sarah and many of the friends Amanda had made during her time at the Circle T. As they exchanged vows, Amanda caught herself thinking of that fateful day at the train station, and how what had seemed like the worst moment of her life had actually been the beginning of something beautiful. The years that followed brought challenges, as years always do. The winter of '78 was brutal, nearly crippling many of the ranches in the territory. Luke and Amanda weathered it together, along with the arrival of their first child, a daughter they named Catherine Sarah, in honor of both the woman Luke had loved and lost, and the sister who had welcomed Amanda when she needed it most. By 1880, Luke had become a full partner in the Circle T, and they had built their own home not far from the main ranch house. Amanda's seamstress business flourished, with orders coming from as far away as Cheyenne. Their family grew with the addition of a son, Thomas Luke, whose arrival coincided with the completion of the railroad spur that finally connected Willow Creek directly to the eastern lines. On a bright autumn day in 1885, 10 years after they first met, Luke and Amanda stood on the platform of the newly expanded Willow Creek station. Their children danced around them with the boundless energy of youth, while Amanda held their newest addition, 2-month-old James, in her arms. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we'd both made that train?" Luke asked, his arm around her shoulders. Amanda looked up at her husband, seeing the same kindness in his eyes that had drawn her to him a decade earlier, now mingled with the deeper affection born of years shared together. "I believe we would have found each other somehow," she said with certainty. "Some things are simply meant to be." As they turned to leave the station, Amanda paused for one last look at the train tracks stretching into the distance. Once, they had represented escape and false promises. Now, they were simply part of a past that had led her exactly where she was meant to be, beside a man whose missed train had changed both their lives forever.